Welcome to Deep Thought. Many movements fly under the radar. As y'all know, I pay attention to subcultures, and part of that is just paying attention to different movements. And I was thinking about many movements that will fly under the radar, which means the mainstream media isn't talking about it, but at some point they'll pop out. Now it's a little bit easy. It's a little bit harder now for anything to fly under the radar, just because of social media, especially TikTok. Indeed, many companies, they will pay attention to different subcultures and movements that make a presence on, especially a forum like TikTok and also something like IG, because, well, quite frankly, they're trying to make money off of it. And then, of course, government agencies that track movements that could be a problem politically. They track them now a little bit easier. But even then, they're still under the radar. Because I'll give you an example of a movement, the Nation of Islam. The Nation of Islam. Regardless of how you feel about them now, they made their presence known. They really became known to the general public in the late 50s under the spokesmanship of Malcolm X. But the reality was they had been on the government radar since the 1930s. They'd already been around, but they were under the radar, especially considering the level of coverage that they would have had then. And it's still that same way. There's many movements out. I actually look for, even on social media, I ain't gonna give away some of them. I actually look for any mention of it or anybody really talking about it, because, well, that's just what I do. But even then, I was thinking about, like, there's some in particular, I see it there, but because they don't have a major spokesman or spokeswoman, spokesperson, a he, she, or them, you don't hear about it. Nobody's talking about it. Nobody's identifying it. But then I start, well, let's just say I know how to look at things. And when I start looking at things, certain tales that I ain't gonna share right now, but, well, I'll share a tale right now. If you online, TikTok, IG, and you see somebody promoting a certain thing, check out how many people follow them and who they follow, and then just surf through. You see somebody's things hit theirs, and then you be like, oh, wait, they got 100,000 followers. Oh, they got 500,000 followers. So I was like, oh, wait a minute. Might be something there. Maybe not a name. But even then, it's still under the radar. They're not talking about it if they're not talking about it on the major news programs or something, or showing a concern, at least publicly, they still under the radar. And indeed, you have certain forces that will even work to keep them under the radar, because they know if they become, there's some movements out there that can change things even socially. Some could have an effect politically if people knew about them. So indeed, you do have certain, I'll say, intelligence agencies who deal with both inner country issues and then out of the country issues, who keep track of a lot of stuff, and maybe even work to keep them away. In fact, it's interesting because there has been people who've been on social media and they'll complain about being shadow banned. Plenty of people, you always get somebody saying, hey, all my people aren't seeing this. So, yeah, trust me, somebody knows, but it's still under the radar. It's still happening. And there's a lot going on. See, one of the things is when a lot of times people just know what's in their world. And when I say their world, their social milieu, their social class, their religious class, who they hang around. Even if they get online, they'll follow like some content creator or something like that. But even then, it's still limited. It's like if you're talking about a big pie, they looking at a small piece of the pie. There's so much happening. There's so much going on. And I mean, I know this because, like I said, I could probably get a PhD in studying social subcultures. I would do something on subcultures. in movements. In fact, my interest in movements actually go back to college. I took a lot of politics classes, so I could probably give you a lot about revolutionary movements and stuff of that nature. But they will be under the radar, you know. People aren't talking about it, or people haven't named it, because there's a few things happening out there that people, behaviors, lifestyles people are engaging in, but nobody's giving it a name. So that really flies under the radar. But it's something to think about, because sometimes when you have different movements that all of a sudden pop up and everybody's talking about it, and people even having issues with it, you know, maybe the movement might be political. It could be a spiritual movement. Hey, it could be a spiritual movement. If it's political or spiritual, it means a whole lot. And actually more powerful if it's social. Like if you get a critical mass of people, in fact, I use one that's people know about and they're hearing about, but I don't think people are really thinking about the long-term implications of it. And that's the vegan movement, people eating vegan. You know, people not eating any meat or dairy products, things of that nature. How many industries are affected by vegans? You know, first of all meat industries, if you get a critical mass of people, it's growing now. I think the last number I saw, maybe 6% in the United States, 6% of the American population considers themselves vegan. And then, you know, other people will try out, but 6%. What happens if that gets to 20%? How many industries, like how many, if you look at all these restaurants out here, how many restaurants all of a sudden start feeling their pockets a bit lighter, because if people coming in, they only want vegan stuff if they even come in. And then, you know, their main thing is selling meat, selling burgers, selling chicken or something. You know, you get 20% or 25% of the population that goes strictly vegan. You know, they might have to switch up. And even then, there's a lot of vegans, they don't want something to fake me out like meats that are processed. Meats, proteins that are processed like that. They want to even get more natural than that. How many industries are affected? Beef industry, pork industry, anything meat related. Also, you know, there was a big deal lately about chicken eggs being so expensive. But vegans don't eat eggs. And vegans, you know, they don't eat fish. Think about it. I want to seriously think about it. It's under the radar now, but what happens if it gets to another level? It's something to think about. You know, it's something to think about. And like, how does that affect life? How does that affect the economy? Everything. But right now, even though some people are talking about it, it's still generally under the radar. You get a story about it here and there, but as it gets bigger and bigger, it starts affecting other stuff. And that's just one. There's a bunch of other stuff I'll keep to myself, but it's happening. A lot of stuff is happening. And now, real quick, don't ask me which ones. If I was wanted to share, even privately, I would have did so. Don't ask me privately either, you know? So here's the thing. I would say this, like I said, one tell is if you just on one of the social media, YouTube, it could be YouTube, it could be IG, TikTok, any of these other things. What's people talking about? You know, how many different groupings are there? And could it get bigger? What would it affect in the long term? You know, because like I said, right now many are, they're just there. But then all it takes is maybe a single moment to take them to another level. And no telling what kind of effect it can have. So, something to think about. So, anyway, y'all, that's all I have for this episode. And I'll get back with y'all on Sunday morning. Peace and blessings.